Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Anyone can respond?
I can hear you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you. Right. Okay. So let me start. I just shared my screen, and can you also see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining today. So in this session, we have two paths to follow. The first path is we will go through the fundamentals of n8n, a basic workflow, and then we will discuss the advanced version of the orchestration engine we can actually build with n8n. So I think if we can have an intro first would be great. And let me just see how we can see that. Okay. What here should computer sound? Just a second. Right. Okay. So the n8n is uh, pretty much popular because of its self-hosted solution, and like it's pretty much popular of like very easily like you can easily create the workflows in this platform. Like if we compare with the other frameworks in the market, like Zapier or make.com, so probably sometime for the new users we might get some time to get into the things. And in comparison to those platforms, n8n is pretty much easy to start with. So if we just go to their website, and we can actually see a GitHub link here, and if we click here, we will be actually able to see the actual source code of this framework. So if someone is planning to utilize n8n for their organization, and they might want to get a copy of n8n, make their own customization, so they can just clone the website, just forget. Like we can see that 58,000 people has so far forked or actually copied n8n to their own infrastructure. So what it means, they can make changes to the framework, but it will remain in their own environment until they push a change to the GitHub. And for that purpose, we can see like around 1,000 pull requests are actually sent by the people who are using or working with n8n. So if there is any problem, they can push back, and otherwise they can also keep the copy of that. So that is the actually true power of n8n, which we cannot actually get with any other available orchestration engine, as I said, like Zapier or make.com or any other frameworks we see, like Go High Level. Lot of frameworks available in the market who actually offer similar functionality, but they are not that scalable or that easy to consume. So to start with, anyone who is going to start today can simply go get started and create their own account. And They just need to put their company email. For example, if my email address is already not used, so I can probably try to provide an email here. It will send me a code to verify. So I would also encourage if someone is new today to the n8n, he should just do the same steps with me. And if someone is having any issue, I would be happy to help during the session. So once we enter our email, we will get a code, and I'm going to add my code. We will click on submit. So we'll be able to see the session form where we can add our information. So I will choose an account name. We can say like HDRS workshop in this case. And we can verify that we are human. So I'm just going to copy it and start free trial. So it will take a couple of seconds and then take us to this screen where it will ask some information about us. What is the company size? We can choose any company size we have. What team are you on? So here n8n is actually asking that what is your role as a user of the n8n, so we can choose what is the role we are into, and then we will go to the next question. Do you use any of these AI tools? Like I can choose that Cursor, Claude, Codex, ChatGPT, whatever we use, we will select them. Which of these do you feel comfortable being writing a JavaScript function using SQL? So they are just determining what is the level of the person from technology perspective, because n8n is actually based on no coding platform, but it offers to low code to full code environment also. So to cover every level of person who is going to use the n8n, so they have provided the uh, environment for everyone. So we can choose the platforms we work on, and we can invite our team members, or we can just skip that. So once we skip, we will come up with a welcoming video. We can see that video, or we can just start automating. Just see. All right. So when we will create our account, we will be able to see this environment. I'm going to explain this environment in a bit. So if someone is creating their new account, just send me a thumbs up or yes in the chat so I can, and if someone needs me to wait for a few seconds, I can wait. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So we are moving forward. So when after the registration with the cloud version, you will be able to see this environment, and which is called Canvas. So Canvas is where actually you start building your workflows. So you can click on run a live demo. So they will take you to a demo, or you can go with the build a workflow. So in our case, we will click on build a workflow, and we will click here. We will actually see the canvas here. So here we have two options. First option is to create the workflow manually, step by step, which we will do that because we are in the learning purpose. So once we learn how to fundamentally create the workflows, so there is no harm if we just use AI to create the basic stuff, and we just then add our efforts to the advanced things we are working on. So if we click on build with AI, we will see a prompt section where we can actually provide prompts, and it can create the workflows for them. They have also given some examples for us. So, for example, YouTube video chapters, summarize emails with AI, invoice processing pipelines, lead qualification and call scheduling, daily AI. So we can choose any of them. For example, we can start with summarize email. So if we choose this template, we see create an automation that runs on Monday mornings. It reads my Gmail inbox from the weekend, analyzes them with GPT 4.1 mini to find action items and priorities, and email me a structured email using Gmail. So this use case will be very helpful for the executive members or the managers. Their team is probably communicating each other with the customer, and there are a lot of emails, and they might not get time to see them over the week, or they don't need to get into every email. So they can create an agent which can actually automatically over the weekend read through all the emails and prepare a summary and extract the actionable items for them, and send them in a single email, or maybe send them over their messaging app, for example, over Slack, or whatever the messaging app they are using. So if we just hit submit here, it will start creating the workflow for. Okay, so I think maybe someone needs to mute themselves, or maybe. Okay, so we have a question from Alex. Is the n8n AI functionality also available when it's self-hosted? No. So Alex, the cloud version only provides the AI functionality. So I have the example with me where you can see that the URL, if you see here, is actually automation.softpyramid.com. So SoftPyramid is my company, and the automation is a subdomain where this n8n is actually hosted. So we have our own self-hosted version where we actually have some agents I'm working on, or for our customers. So my team actually use this environment to create. So if we could click here, like create in a self-hosted environment, if we click on create workflow, so we will be able to see just the manual part of the so because the reason is the cloud version is actually a free trial for some time, but then it requires you to get a subscription. I think it's $20 per month, and then they actually offer you to utilize their computing and their tokens of AI. So uh, maybe in the future they will offer this feature to the self-hosted environments where we actually connect our own LLM and we can utilize this functionality. I hope I was able to answer. Yeah, thank you so much. All right. So meanwhile, when we submitted our prompt and AI has created a workflow for us, so we can now maybe close it and we can see what workflow we have here. So in the beginning, we can see there is a node and some node. So I'm going to explain you the very fundamentals of the n8n, and then we will come back to the workflow, and we will try to actually execute the same workflow we have created. So I'm going to just go back and create a new workflow just to understand the fundamentals, because some of our friends are actually using first time n8n today. So in the manual case, so this is like we have a way to get quickly workflow done, but it's better that we know the basics of the stuff. So if there is something not working or we are not able to explain AI what the problem we are facing, so we can quickly go there and just fix that problem on ours. So if we click on add first step, so n8n has actually pretty much user friendly, and it will actually help you to utilize their tools whenever they are needed. So for example, every workflow will be started with a trigger, and trigger are like can be many types. Like as we see, the first trigger here is trigger manually. So someone will come to the workflow, click on a button, and then the workflow will be executed. The second option can be that there is an application which will actually trigger the workflow. For example, if we are using voice agents and we have a number attached with the, for example, we are using Twilio. So we have a number there. So we want when someone will make a call on that number, so it will trigger an event on Twilio, and then Twilio will actually trigger event on our workflow, which is actually commonly called a webhook trigger. So it can be a webhook directly, or it can be an application level trigger. So for example, if we have the Twilio here, so Twilio can automatically trigger the event. So if we see here, for the example, like Twilio, we see on new SMS. So this is actually called an application level trigger or a new call. When someone will, so the Twilio is actually a platform which provides you, let me just, okay. So I just opened the Twilio for everyone. So this is a platform where we can actually purchase some communications, for example, the SMS, WhatsApp, voice, email, phone number. We can build actually a voice agent, we can build a chat agent, we can build video APIs, and the telephony system is actually we can connect. So for example, as I said, if we have an voice agent and we want to, like, someone is making a call on that number, so it will automatically trigger our workflow. And if we go back, we can see on a new call. So someone will make a call on a number and it will automatically trigger the workflow, and then we can actually do the stuff we want to response back to the caller. For example, if the caller says, okay, what is the status of my order? So we will have a workflow which will be connected to the our system or the database we have. So it will ask some info. The AI agent will ask some questions, and it will share back the information. So just as an example. So yeah, thank you so much. So similarly, we have lot of other app level triggers. And then we have another kind of which is very common to use, that is called on a schedule. So the schedule trigger is what we see here. For example, if we click here, so we will see something the same we have saw actually. Let me just open in a new tab so we can compare them side by side. So the same trigger, if you see here, we have this one. So this is called the schedule trigger. So we will go through them each trigger one by one, and then if we go to the other trigger calls, which are like on webhook call. So the webhook, for those who does not familiar with this terminology, is actually a URL of a software which is actually called, so it can be an incoming call or it can be an outgoing call. So for example, we someone is using Salesforce, and in the Salesforce there is an event happened, so that event can send their data to a URL, whatever the data they want to send, and then that URL can be listened on our n8n workflow, and then it can take on that data and process the further steps, whatever we want to achieve. Similarly, the other trigger is on form submission. So, for example, if I just share an example here with my own company, so if we click here, get started, so you will see almost on every website that they have a lead capturing form. So this is actually a form, and when we will submit this form, it can actually also trigger a workflow behind the scenes, and it can perform the stuff we want to do. So let's suppose with the form trigger, what you can do, you can actually implement the AI, and you can see, okay, based on the email address, name, and the message you have here, what is actually the person looking for. If someone is just trying to sell something, like a marketing person has actually filled out this form, you probably don't want to take that into your CRM behind the scenes. You can just discard that the message right away. Or if you see, if someone has actually someone is looking for a job, and they have mentioned something which is actually related to your company. So for example, in our case, if someone says, hey, I'm an expert in like n8n, and I want to work with you, so probably we will keep that information, and but we will send that request. Instead of our sales team or the CRM, we will reroute that message to the HR department, and then HR department can actually look at that message, and then they can start communicating if they need to for the email address we have here. And similarly, we can actually distribute the other type of requests we have to the different department. For example, if it's a customer service department query, or it's a sales department, so whatever. So this is actually the interface of a form trigger. And once someone will submit that form trigger, we will actually be able to get that information, and then we can reroute or process the information as we want. So then there is another kind of trigger which is called when executed by another workflow. So we will initially create a workflow which will be triggered uh, for one of the above triggered we mentioned: manual, app, on schedule, webhook, on form. But there are possibilities that we are working on a very large workflow, and we don't want to keep the whole workflow in one place, which will be very hard for us to manage in the future. So we will create separate workflows, which is actually called separation of concerns. Like each workflow will perform a specific task, so we can create a separate component or a separate workflow, and that component or workflow or a sub workflow can be actually executed by the parent workflow. So when a parent workflow will be executing, so it can actually execute another workflow from a parent workflow. So in that case, we will require a trigger to execute the child workflow, and we will use this trigger, which is actually look like this. So when executed by another workflow, so it will actually execute the sub workflow. So if we move next, we can see another kind of trigger, which is actually on chat trigger. So the on chat trigger is actually, let me take you another example here. Okay. So for example, if we have a chatbot initiated on our website, so we can actually add a chat trigger. So when I will say hello here, so if this chat trigger is working, it will actually execute a workflow behind the scenes, and it can actually talk with the person. So if as a normal user, no one will understand that if there is an, for example, a coding application working behind the scenes, or there is actually an attend workflow behind the scenes which is responsible to create an appointment, right? So this is actually example of so what you see here is actually an n8n workflow, and we are talking with the chat interface of the n8n. So if we go back, so we click here on chat message, we will be able to see a chat node. So this box, we usually call it a node, and each node has their own parameter, their own settings. Like they are different when, for example, if we click on a manual trigger, let me just add a manual trigger. So you see this is a different look, and if I add, for example, a schedule trigger, so we see they have like n8n has created different icons, names. So we identify them in a workflow. What is the purpose of that node actually? Okay, so the let's say the on chat message basically creates a chat box on the bottom of the right screen as you saw in soft pyramid. Yes, it actually helps you to create that, and I will just explain that. So how we can actually achieve that purpose. So if we just see the manual trigger node, we see this interface, and there is some settings. But if we go here, we will see a different environment here, because it requires some configuration to execute the workflow on a certain time period. And if we click on the chat message received, we will see another different kind of information. But the common part between all these is this two tabs: parameter settings, and again the parameters and settings. And the third part is the right one. If you see here, edit output, the same thing actually you see on the right side. So because the fundamentally these are the same objects or the same nodes, but they have different functionality with respect to the usage we want to create. So just to answer the question in the chat, we when we click on a chat message received trigger, we will see make chat publicly available. So when we make this chat publicly available, it will give us a URL actually, and we can copy that URL and we can use it. For example, if I just copy it and I put the URL here, so it shows that the request is right, but it's not available because the workflow must be active for a production URL to run successfully. So if the workflow is not active, so it will display this message. So just to quickly understand this concept, what we can do, we can just click here on publish. Yes, you will be able to get the recording. I will share that. So we will click on the publish, and we can just skip the warnings they are showing for now because we are just learning, and we refresh this URL. So we will be able to see a chat window here. So this chat window is actually taking the full page environment. But if we want to show it as we saw here, like a message window, so we can actually change the setting, and which is actually here, the mod hosted chat or the embedded chat. When we will select on the embed chat, we will able to see the instructions how we can actually integrate this chat into our application. So if we click here, it will take us to an environment which actually shows the information that you need to add this package to your website or the web application, and it will actually integrate the this field what we see here, right? Can I create passkey like this, or this is something entirely different? Definitely, we can definitely create that, because passkey is the same thing. Like if we see here, the same thing we actually access there, and we can actually be part of. So we can also override the whole visual interface, and we can just keep our own interface. We don't need to utilize the ready-made interface, but this is just for the convenient part, and you can actually create your whole new interface, and you can use the whole power of orchestration of your workflow. So coming back to the chat message here, so we see some more information which we will go through as we build the workflow. So this is the fundamental of the triggers, because this is the starting point of your workflow. So I thought it would be better to get a more understanding of your environment. So when we were like on a no node here, when and we clicked, so we were able to see here the mm, triggers nodes here. But as we have placed the trigger node into our canvas, automatically the priority of our node selection is changed by n8n, and now we can see some other kind of information. And the step one, the trigger thing is now just on the bottom, because that is not our requirement now. So for example, if we just go through the AI, just for the attraction part, and we just select an AI agent, and for example, we select the AI agent here, so it will come up with a node which can be actually connected with a chat node, or it can be connected with a manual node, or can be a schedule trigger node, as we mentioned. Like for example, if we have a form trigger, and if I just click here on a form submission, so for example, if we have a, let me just put it here. So for example, if we have a form trigger, as I mentioned in our example I was sharing from the software amid form, if someone will submit a form, we will receive that information, and we can utilize right away the AI to process that information. And then we can actually take the further steps. And similarly, we can actually add it after the schedule trigger, or maybe with the chat trigger. So for the reference of the example, we are going to use it for now with the chat and AI agent. So to connect a node to another node, you need to click on this plus sign, and you will be able to drag it to the other node. So as you can see, it is now connected, right? So you can also connect more than one nodes if you want to be part of them. So there is no restriction that if there is one node and you can just use it once. There are some nodes which can only be connected with one node at a time, but they are just based on the requirement of the workflow, and for the general purpose, there is no restriction. So you can see that because a agent can can take input from a form submission, it can take input from an email trigger, it can take input from a chat trigger. So it allows us to communicate with all. So to delete the connection, you can just move on the line you want to disconnect, and you will be able to disconnect the nodes. So once we have this one, so for now, let me just clear these ones, because when we will discuss them, we can actually, okay, so, right. So in our case, we are just trying to create a chat agent to understand how the agents behind the scenes actually work. What we need an LLM. So LLM is a large language model, and nowadays everyone is using LLMs. Either they are offered by OpenAI, either they are offered by Anthropic, by Google. So you always use them. So the chat interface built on the LLM for OpenAI is ChatGPT. For Anthropic, it's Claude. For Google, it's Gemini. So lot of chat interfaces are available, and they are using behind the scene the a component called LLM. So in our case, our chat interface will not ChatGPT, not Gemini, not Claude. We want to build our own chat interface. So we will connect an LLM here, chat model. So the chat model can be anything, because if you can see, there is a huge number of LLMs available. So these LLMs are mostly public LLMs, they are paid. For example, we can see the Alibaba Cloud, the Anthropic, Azure, AWS, Bedrock, DeepSeek, Google Gemini, Google Vertex, Grok, and the famous one, OpenAI, right? You can also see Olama chat model. So because the fundamental power of n8n is to be utilized as a self-hosted, for the learning purpose, you can definitely use the cloud version, and maybe in some cases you want to be on the cloud, so you don't need to actually handle your own infrastructure. uh, but for the organizations who are data sensitive, they don't want to share their data outside their premises, they might want to utilize the whole infrastructure in their own environment. So they can set up a server, they can host the n8n, and then they can also host their own LLM, the chat model. So in to connect their own chat model, this is the component called Olama. If I can just take you here. So the Olama offers you install a variety of LLMs or the models for the different purpose. If you see here, like if you want to work on a vision model, for example, you want to work on in image generation, you want to edit the images, or you want to create the videos, or you want to create the audio, you can see the vision tools, thinking, audio, cloud. So there are lot of information actually behind these chat models, which are actually we don't maybe need to discuss in detail at this point, but just give you to the right context of what we are talking about. because in the future, if someone will start using n8n in their own infrastructure, and they want to keep their information with them, because when we are working with the customers, they mostly ask, okay, we have our like secret recipes. We don't want to share those information with OpenAI or with Anthropic or with any other cloud providers. We want to process them inside our premises. And or because sometimes we see like someone actually posted a Claude hack. So when you see any news like that, okay, so the source code is leaked, right? So when you see such news and you are being a person who actually proposed the n8n or on any AI integration into the organization, so you might be held responsible for that decision, and you might feel that, oh my god, I did not realize that I will face this situation. So I'm just adding this to the reference that you have the full freedom to use n8n on the cloud or into your own infrastructure, right? Yeah, thank you so much. So coming back to the conversation, and so similarly, we can actually choose all other available chat models. So we can actually, in our case, we can just start with the OpenAI chat model, and you can see it says free credits. So let's see if the free credits are coming from n8n or the OpenAI. So we can now see when we selected the OpenAI chat model, we can actually see the credentials part, which is actually already providing a $5 credits. So in this case, we don't need to connect our own API or our own OpenAI account, because we are just learning. So we just have the $5 available, and we can utilize that. And if we have like just finished this balance, we have to create our own account. We can click my own credential. So when, yeah, so the advantage is like by default, OpenAI n8n is providing you some token to utilize, but in when after $5, you need to actually use your own open API, because they will be charging you for utilizing that. If you will not add your own open AI credentials, you will not be able to get the LLM uh, functionality to process, right? So once we have completed this one, we can actually come here, and we can click on the setup credentials. So when you will click here, in almost in all the n8n nodes where we have to set up the credentials, you will see a similar look and feel, but with the different information required. So you can actually click here to read the documents, how you should connect the n8n, sorry, the open API, or you can just use the AI to help you the step-by-step instructions. Once you have the open AI API key, you can actually provide here the information, and it will be able to connect. You can very easily get an API from Gemini, like you can just see Google Gemini, the API key. So you can just go here, and you can get the API key, as I just created that, create an API key. So to use Google AI API key, we need to actually switch the uh, chat model here. So here we are using the OpenAI, but we can also, for example, we can just keep it here, and we can click here, and we can choose Gemini chat model. So it also comes with free credits, But if we have like finished those credits and we want to create our own setup API, so in this case, we need to go here and create an API key. And it is very easy to start with. We can just say it, for example, in our case, HDR, and we can just create the project. So it will just provide us this API key. We can copy that API key and we can just place it here. So when we place an API key or whatever the credentials we are providing, we can actually save them. So it will actually test the connection that if the API key is correct or not. If the API key will not correct, for example, if I just change it and I save it, so it will give us an error that could not connect with these settings. So it means there is some problem in the configuration we have. But if we have the right key, we will be able to actually see this green message. So in this way, for example, we have provided our credentials, but as n8n actually offers us a $5 credit, we will use that. And once we finish that, then we can actually use the this one. This is another free version we are using from the Gemini, and it also comes up with some free tokens. We can see it somewhere. And once we have completed those, then maybe we need to add our credit card and get the billing provide a billing account. So coming back to the original part, in this way, we can actually start communicating with the chat model. And if I just click here, we can see that we don't need to provide the LLM connection here uh, because it is already available. What we have to do in the next step is actually to select the model. So as I said, the LLMs or the large language models are published over time. They call it in different names, as you have heard in the beginning. ChatGPT 3.5, ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 4o. So these are actually the large language models behind the scenes. So we can select the GPT 4o mini for our case, and we can just close it. With free credit, does it automatically switch to your own account if it is configured? I don't think so. I have not tried that. If the n8n provide this automatically feature, probably it will just stop working, and you need to actually come back to the workflow and switch to the credentials. No problem. Okay, so if we come back to the chat message, when we place this node here, you can see open chat button here, and you can also see the open chat button here. So either button you can click on, and you can just say a message. For example, I will say, "Hi, how are you today? What is your age?" So when we execute a trigger or we execute a node, it will display when you are in the canvas, it will actually show you a progress bar around that node. And when it will be completed, it will turn into the green. And if there will be any error, it will show comes up with the red outline. So you can understand what's going on. So behind the scenes, when we just submitted, it actually has the code already written to perform this stuff. But we are, as an end user, are not interacting with that code. We are just using that. So if when we send a message, how hi, how are you today? What is your age? So we can see the response has been received. I am just a program. So I don't have feelings or an age like humans, but I'm here and ready to help you with anything you need. So we can tell them, like, I live in Frisco, Texas. Okay, so it says, that's great. Frisco is a vibrant, and I can say where you live. So any chat, like just an example I'm sharing. So when we ask this question, you can see it's taking some time because it's actually trying to understand the user request, and then it actually responds us back. So you have received response. I don't have a physical location since I'm just a virtual assistant, but I'm here to help you with any questions. So if I ask ChatGPT where I live, so how many of you think that it will be able to tell me that I live in Frisco? Just give me a message in chat for yes, and who thinks that it will not come up with the Frisco can say no. Right. Yeah. So Alex said no. Okay. Right. So if we just send where I live, so we can see the answer is, I am unable to determine where you live or access personal information. If you have questions, so what is the problem? We just tell the we just told the AI agent that I live in Frisco, and in very next message it's saying that I don't know where you live. So the problem here is memory. That's right. Right. So the problem is the memory. So if you come back to the chat agent, you can actually see that we have a memory line here where we can actually add the memory. And then there is a tool, we will discuss that later. So, okay, but what is happening behind the scenes? Why this workflow requires a memory when we can see that the information is actually already there? The problem is, or actually the technical reason is, if we click on the executions, we will be able to see something. When we were communicating with the chat agent, so on every request, it is actually creating a separate execution layer of that workflow. So one execution is not part of the other execution, and the other execution is not part of the next execution. That's why there is no information available with the chat agent that where we live. For example, when we were on this message, so the first message we send, if I click on the first uh, execution, we can double click here and we can see the first message we sent, hi, how are you today? What is your age? But if we click on the second execution and we double click on the chat, so I told the chat in chat LLM that I live in Frisco. And in the next one, we send this message. So because there is no connection between these executions, this chat LLM does not has the prior information, because that was just executed in the same in one session, and it just did the task. So what we actually can understand from this uh, perspective, it means there is no like limitation of a workflow that how many people can actually use that workflow, because the workflow is not one thing which is actually in a process. When, for example, if a user is sending a message to a workflow, and if 1000 users are sending a message to the workflow, apparently it will look like if a workflow is processing a request of a user, it might take some time to respond to the other user because it's executing the workflow to answer one person, right? Apparently, we see this, but behind the scenes, this is not the case. Behind the scenes, every transaction with the workflow will be a separate copy. So it means if there are thousands of users on a chat window or on your website, and they are submitting their requests to the workflow, they will be handled separately. Now, the responsibility will be on the hardware, on the processor, or the infrastructure where the n8n is hosted, that how quickly they can respond back, right? So if we come back here and we provide the memory, we can see some memory nodes here, and we can see the Redis, Postgres, MongoDB, and then there is a very simple memory, which is actually built-in memory of n8n. We can actually just choose that, and they have mentioned for beginners, right? So just to start with, we can choose this memory, and when we select this node, we don't need to do anything here because it is already pre-configured by n8n, and we don't need to do anything. So what this memory by default keeps, it is already connected with our chat trigger node. So when someone information will be coming from the chat node, it will be stored in this memory. How much memory it will store? That is called the context window length. So these are the last or the past interactions it will store. By default, it will store 5 interactions, but you can store 50, 500, whatever, like you based on your requirement, you can actually store them. Just to add up a context, because we mostly are using ChatGPT and Claude or any other tool, you might face this problem that you are talking with the chat agent, for example, with chat GPT, and sometimes you feel that it start losing the memory or start losing the context you are talking about, right? For example, you started a conversation, you have shared some information, and then you had a long conversation, and probably after 2 days, 3 days, you will ask anything, and it will say, "Oh, I don't have that information." And you will be surprised, like that information is, you can see, if you just scroll up to the chat window, you will be able to see that conversation. But in the response of the chat, you actually see why you are not able to understand. Here is the problem, what I just want to share with you, the context window length. So each LLM has actually a context window length. When it just actually an immediate memory available for the chat agent to respond you back. When you will exceed a chat conversation size beyond that context window length, it it might not come up with the right information. At that point, you will see some hallucinated information is coming from the chat agents, either it's chat GPT or whatever. So to understand this context is very important when you are communicating with AI agents, that you need to keep it concise. You need to summarize it. And for example, if you are having a long chat window, after one day, you can just ask the chat GPT, okay, whatever I have asked you above, summarize it, that you don't lose any context from above chat. So it will summarize that context and will keep it on top of the conversation. Now you can continue your own conversation, and if you will discuss anything from the past, it will it may lose from the context window, but it will not lose from the summary, because that is just available in the recent context window. So you will not be able to lose the context when you are talking with the chat agents. So I hope it will help you out. Okay, so okay, yeah. So the memory here is actually free. Definitely, it's free because it's built-in memory, and you can definitely use it. But yeah, so the memory does not attach with any token thing. The token thing is just this chat model. So the memory is just a database or just an Excel sheet or just a storage space. Yeah. So when we will send a message, you can see in our previous conversations, when we send a message, it message was traveled to the AI agent and then it traveled to the OpenAI. And now we have this memory. When we will send a message, it will actually travel to the memory. So for example, if I just send a message again, I live in Frisco. So we will be able to see that the information is traveling to the chat agent and then to the chat. And we also can see that two messages are actually stored in the simple memory. And these two messages are these ones. Like I live in Texas, Frisco, and the response from the AI. So if I now ask where I live, so OpenAI is taking some time, probably. Mostly it comes fast, but I think maybe there is a load on their server. So you can see that the response from the AI is now this one. Like Frisco, Texas is located in where I live. So it knows that where I live. And if we see here, the input where I live and the output, and it has used the context window behind the scenes. These are the conversations if we see from here that the information is actually being stored. And when we send a message, the AI agent actually use this chat model, and it then use the memory when it requires, right? So if in a case it does not require a memory, it may not use that tool. That's why we call it an orchestration engine, because the orchestration is coming from this part where an AI agent will actually decide which tools we need to use. So okay, so we have a message in chat. This is sweet. I have to leave. Okay. All right. So if we move forward, we can actually add some tools here, but we can also need to work on the AI agent that when we asked where I live, it should just come up with the uh, answer right away. It should not add too much information there, right? So what we can do here, we can actually add a guardrail or a guided information to the agent that how it should respond. So if we will double click on this chat A agent node, we will be able to see this environment where we can actually click on add option and click on a system message. So just to give you a better understanding of communicating with the chat agents or the LLMs, you will see three type of communications. The first type is system message. So system message sits on top of the AI agent, and then you will see about a user message. So the user message is as a user when you send a message. And then you will see a third terminology, which is called the assistant message. So the assistant message is the chat model responding you back. So three type of messages: system message, user message, and assistant message. So system message will, in most of the cases, it will be just one time thing, and the user and the assistant message will be the repetitive things. So by default, if we see, n8n has already added you are a helpful assistant. And if we just add it here, we can just ask. So I'm going to, instead of typing, I'm just going to use the whisper flow if someone is not aware of this thing. So this software whisper flow is actually installed in your computer, and you can actually just press a button. So it will show you something here, and you can actually speak, and it will type into the into the message. So I will just cancel this one, and I will ask, okay, whenever you are requested for a question, just response to the point and do not add any extra information. Right? So I just spoke and it was able to actually type that into the message. So it's very easy when you are chatting with the AI agents. You don't need to type the long prompt. You can just speak with them. Okay, so if we just close it, okay. So if we just ask the message again, where I live, so I hope the response should be limited, or maybe just the Frisco, Texas as a response, because we have guided the AI how it should respond. So we can see when we were not uh, uh, properly guiding the AI, so the response was, yeah, sure. Okay. So the response was a long, and when we have added some guidance, so now we have the response available. So yeah, someone is asking, I think Patrick is asking. Yeah. So sorry, the whisper flow is just a tool for voice dictation. Most of the apps actually offers you to dictate your voice. Every tool provides you. So I'm using this one because it actually stores the memory in my computer. So for example, if we come here, you can see whatever I'm communicating here, it's actually getting the dictionary and all the information. So over the time, it's actually getting trained better and better. No, it's not free. I think there is a pricing bracket. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there is a free version also. You can like choose 2,000 words per week on Mac or Windows, 1,000 words per week on Flow for iPhone. And then there are some tiers. I will send the link of it into the chat. Right. So yeah, no problem. So we were able to see that after some adding some guidance to the AI agent, the response is totally different, right? So it means in the system prompt, we can actually tell AI how it should respond, and we can also explain AI that whenever someone will ask a message, it should always respond with thanks, with greetings, and whatever we want to add. For example, whenever you will be asked a question, your response always ends with greetings or thank you messages, right? So if we just close it and we now ask the A again, the same question, where I live, right? So you see, when we asked first time, it just told whatever the instructions was there, and now we have added the more instruction, the response come up with the thank you. So whatever the message we will send, it will give us a response, and it will add a greeting to the response. So if you are building something for your website, so you want your AI assistant to be helpful, so you can actually add these instructions. And as we mentioned in the beginning, if we just publish it and we just make it public, which we already have, and we just click on the chat here. Let me just get the URL again, copy URL. First entry, JSON. Okay, there is something missing. Publicly, oh, sorry. We need to put it back. The hosted chat publish. Right. So this is the chat window, and if you guys will send a message, you will be able to see that the chat agent is working. Hi, how are you? Right? So in just few minutes, you can actually create a chat agent which can actually communicate with the people, and it has a public URL. So if, for example, if you have a sales data and you connect the sales data and you just keep an internal chat for your team, you can just quickly create a workflow here. You can create a chat bot, and you can just share the link with your team, and you can ask them, okay, whatever the questions you have, just ask the chat bot. Similarly, if you are into an HR department, you can actually provide information to extract the information from company onboarding documents. So and you can share this chatbot with the person who just on join the team, and they can ask any questions with the chatbot, and chatbot can pull the information behind the scenes, and it can answer to the person. So like similar lot of use cases which can quickly be achieved with the uh, a chat assistant. So just this is an example, and if we come back to our this workflow, we can actually see that there is a Monday morning trigger, and we have a email or a Gmail trigger. What we need to connect, sign in with Google. So if we will click here, must be HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Okay, so it should be working. Let me see. Something is not. Authorization must be HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Okay. 6 seconds inside your personal space. No. Okay, so I think in the cloud version, n8n has already provided this information. So that's why it's not maybe working, or let us make any changes. So we can see that in the credential, we can see the Gmail account, and it is already working there. And if not, we need to fix it. Yeah, okay. So now we will be able to see a pop-up window, and we can select our account. We can provide the information, and connection is successful, and we can actually. Okay. Oh, there are a lot of pop-up windows were opened actually, because I thought it's not working. So the Gmail is now connected, and we can actually communicate with our inbox. And similarly, to send a summary of email, we can connect to another Gmail account, or we can send the same Gmail account what we are. So if we have connected one credential, we don't need to add the same credential every time. We can just provide these credentials, and they are stored in a central place, and and you will be able to reuse them. And similarly, we can actually uh, use the available credits of n8n, and we don't need to provide the API. We can actually see some ready-made information, because this agent was workflow was created by the chat assistant of the n8n. So the chat assistant has created some stuff for you. So now we already know what is the system message mean, right? And how we can add the system message. We need to click on the add option, and we will be able to see the system message. So if we go through the system message, it says you are an email assistant that analyzes email and identifies action items for each email, extract specific task, assign priority based on urgency. So this is the whole guidance to the AI assistant. And then it says user message. If you remember, I told you there will be a three type of system message, user message, and then there will be an assistant message. So the user message here is actually analyze these weekend emails and extract action items with priorities. So the email information is here, and we are saying to the AI that you need to provide the actionable items. So this is the prompt, which, for example, if you are using a chat GPT, so you are actually providing the prompt, and you are copy pasting the email content, and you have to do it every time. If you are doing this the same thing with dynamic information, and you have to copy paste every time, you can simply go to the n8n, create a workflow, and it will automatically pull the information and process it for you. So okay, so we can trigger this workflow like on every Monday. When it will be live, it will be executed on Monday, and it will actually fetch the emails, unread emails. It will fetch all the unread email, and it will then provide them to the AI, and then it will actually send a message to fetch weekend emails item. So it requires that we are actually providing this information somewhere. So if we go back, so we can actually see which account is actually connected, and it will actually execute the workflow. So what I'm going to do, instead of waiting for the Monday 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., I just clicked here and executed the step. So if you move mouse over this item, you will see a small play icon, which means execute step. You can turn off this. For example, if you are working in a long workflow and you don't want to execute something at a time, you can just deactivate that node. So it will just skip that. And you can also delete that, or you can click on here and you can see the further steps, or you can actually just double click here and you can see the full settings. So once we have downloaded all the emails, we can actually then play other step and analyze email for action bad request. Okay, so there is something maybe missing. Yeah. So something is missing, that the subject JSON form text. So this input was expected to be received from here, but it the information is not available in the right context, right? Because when it was created by the AI, it actually just created something as a foundation layer. We need to fix the connections what the AI has generated if it is wrong. So where is the subject? We need to provide the subject of the email. So if we go here, for example, we can click on the schema. It will show us all the items, like the 5 items we can see here one by one. So we can click on subject and we can drag and drop it here, right? So the subject is available from who sent this message. So we can simply drag and drop here and the date of the email. So we should be able to see the internal date. This is the internal date, and maybe in another format, or we can just drag and drop the email internal date. Okay. So if we see this area is smaller, we can click here and it can open the large window, or we can also actually, sorry, we can also click here and it will just open on the right hand side of the window, so you can easily work on that part, right? So okay, so if there is something missing, we can try to execute. You are an email assistant. Okay, please check your bad parameters. Okay, there is something still missing, and n8n does not currently support this operation. Switch to using your own credential. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So there is something happening in this process, which is actually the n8n is saying that I'm not able to execute it. Maybe they have added some limitation on that. Let me try to change the model and see, because apparently it should work. I mean, emails for actions. Okay, so probably the content size is large and they don't want us to utilize that. So in that case, we can simply disconnect it and we can use the Google Gemini chat model, because we have already uh, an issue temperature. Yeah, maybe we can check that. So for example, if we use our own API key here, which we already have, and we can actually try to execute the workflow. But yeah, it's taking some time, but it's not throwing us the error. So probably there might be an issue with the temperature, and we can try to just remove that to just verify that the ChatGPT is working or not. Let it finish. So problem in send node. So there is a problem in send node because we were using that whatever the built by the AI. So we can see that there is an output here, and we have this information. So where we need to send the email, we can just simply type an email. For example, in this case, I can just type my own email address and we can execute the step, right? So when we executed the step, it just sent an email to my email, and hopefully I should have received it somewhere. Yeah. So if I can just show you in my phone. Okay, so my phone is not connected, I think, with the Wi-Fi. Okay, let me just open the email from here. So, okay. So here is the email we have actually received from the n8n, and it comes up with this one, whatever the weekend email action items, here is your summary action items, and whatever the information was there. So we can see that right now the output is in markdown file, and we see that markdown as it is, and it is also saying like the generated automatically on Monday morning, just part of that email. And sometime you might see that this email is sent from n8n, and you need to turn off that setting. So we can now further tweak the AI, that how it should like prepare the response, and it should be a text message or it should be a HTML, whatever we want to use that. So let me just try it again, because I just removed the temperature, and if we just execute it again. Yeah, so looks like the temperature parameter was not the right fit. So that is another debate. We will not go into that. But for now, we have just the model attached, and we have nothing is actually added here, because everything is actually part of this process. So you can actually use that. So one more thing, just to add up before we go into the question answers, you can actually also add a fallback model, enable fallback. So what it means, like you can see here, we have a new option available, fallback model. What it means, like if your chat agent is in production, and let's suppose one agent is the OpenAI is down for some reason, or probably your API is out of balance. So you don't want your production to be down. You can actually create a fallback chat model, and it will try to use that model. Or you can actually also instruct your AI agent, if user is making a request to generate an image, then you should use this model. Otherwise, you should use that model. So you can actually share multiple models with the agent, and it can actually handle multiple things. So this is an overall concept of n8n, the orchestration engine, how you actually define your repetitive task, how you make it workable in your daily life, your professional or your company where you are working on. So I hope this is a helpful session for everyone. And now I would like to ask if someone has any questions. And I will also share I have the email addresses of everyone. I will share the recording of the session there. Are we good? Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. And I tried my best to explain that how we can utilize the n8n, and hope to see you again. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye bye.